All right, we're back. This is actually video number 3 in this selling series for SEM. Um, there is an intro video that we could call video 0, but I'm going to call this video number 3 because this actually has the content. So there are 3 videos with content and 1 intro video. I would recommend you start at the beginning, watch the intro, go 1, 2, 3, because there is an order here, and I wanted to space them out and give you an order and give you time to watch each of these process, come up with questions, come up with concerns, come up with beliefs, come up with anything you have, because we're running into pretty quickly here. We're going to do a live Q&A, and I will come with a topic, but I want people who've been watching the selling series and taking notes from these to now come into the live Q&A, which is going to be rolling out in a couple weeks. Or I shouldn't say that whenever you watch this. That is rolling out so that you can get all your questions and whatever answered. I want you to watch these and go, but wait a minute, right? I get this, but what about this? Hey, how do I apply this in my business? That's what I want you to do here. And I'm creating these to move towards the live Q&A. I want to give the front desk team members, the rock stars, the underappreciated, the undervalued team members, the opportunity to really shine and get credit for the work they are doing, right? So that's what I've created here. So today, video number 3, selling. It's not about the scripts. I know not all the titles tell you actually what's going on here, but right, if we're going to talk front desk selling, everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to get a script. And I'm like, you got to learn the why and the what before we can get into the how. And the more I work on the why and the what with people, and the more they're willing to work through this stuff, the more successful they become. So a little more why, right? Let me just catch you up. The last video, video number 2, we introduced patient success. We talked about the patient life cycle. We talked about a common goal. We were high level. Today, we're going to get into the weeds, start getting into the weeds around this patient life cycle. And the thing I want you guys to start with is the reason we have to get into the why and the how is we got to get the owners, the people running the show, to get out of this, I just got to get people to show up mindset and just get people scheduled mindset. That's what's killing you in your role at the front desk of being successful. When they tell you just get people scheduled, simple enough. That's what you do. When they say just get people to show up, cool, that's what I do. That does not set up patient success. Remember, there was a definition of patient success. There had to be 10 steps completed. Okay. So today, and I want you guys to keep taking that back. This isn't just get people to show up mindset. This isn't just get people scheduled. And in order not to do that, we got to understand the rest of this stuff. So let's take a deeper dive into this client journey, the patient life cycle, the patient journey, whatever we're going to call it. We always start every video with this. What's best for the patient is best for the business. This is my mantra. This is mine. I get credit for this. This is what I wake up every day thinking about. This is what I go to bed thinking about. This impacts every decision I make on how to create greater success for businesses, is doing what's best for the patients. Cool. Now, we talked about patient success in video 2, right? We looked at the definition. We looked at the patient life cycle. And today, let's really start from this idea of where does patient success begin? Because this gets us out of the get scheduled and just get them to show up mindset. Where does patient success begin, right? Is it good enough just to get people scheduled? Because that is short-term thinking. And you'll see when I give you the opposite of why it's short-term thinking versus is it better to get people on the schedule who arrive, pay, and stay. And the stay is complete a plan of care. And then after they arrive, pay, and stay and complete that plan of care, they can be on a wellness program. They can be moved into other stuff. But this is really the idea. They're going to do your marketing for you, right? They're going to spread the word of mouth. They're going to go back to the referral source. They're going to tell their friends. They're going to get online and do reviews, right? This is that virtuous cycle you're trying to create. Clients who arrive, pay, and then stay and do your marketing for you. That is long-term thinking. I mean, look at that versus get people scheduled. If you show up at work on your first day and your job is to answer the phones at a physiotherapy clinic and you're told just get people on the schedule versus you're told I want you to get people on the schedule who will then arrive, pay, and stay and do our marketing for us, you tell me. You're thinking 2 different things on this. This already tells you, wait, I got to think about this phone call differently. Just get them scheduled. You're like, sure. What do we need to collect? This, you're like, wait a minute. Tell me more. And that's exactly what you need to do. And I'm going to help you with, right? So, in order to start this mindset, we don't need a script, right? Tell me more is let me show you a patient's journey within our business, right? Because, right, what we're working towards is a completed plan of care mentality, long-term thinking. So when you're picking up the phone and you hear, hi, my name's Jerry, I have low back pain, I want to get scheduled for physical therapy, you're thinking you are the first step in this completed course of care, this successful journey for this patient. And I want you thinking about that as you're taking them through this phone call and setting them up for success, that long-term thinking. First, they have to arrive, they have to know what they pay, and then they have to agree to stay. You started that journey. You are starting them on their journey for success. You're setting and managing expectations. You are doing all the work to start this downhill journey to patient success. Now, if we're going to do this long-term thinking around arrive, pay, and stay, if we're going to think about this ultimate goal, completed plan of care, we got to know the patient journey again. And now we're going to break this down. And this is where I really want to start with you guys today and break this down a little more, right? Again, to review, your patient life cycle is every single touch point and interaction, your potential, because don't forget, all that red is they haven't arrived yet. They're not a paying customer. They are not a patient till they arrive. That's this area down here in the orange. So it is every single touch point and interaction your potential patients have with your practice, right? And what I want to look at today is that there are 4 phases to every client's journey. Now, it may not look exactly like this, but this is going to be pretty damn close to you and your business. All right. So now the first phase, which I've never updated, is this phase swirling around outside. That's phase number 1. That's called marketing, right? And if we know, right, that every phase has an owner, a goal, a metric of success, and then the systems and processes to achieve those goals, right? Then we can look at each of these and break it down that way. So, phase number 1 is marketing or attraction. Call it what you want. This is anything. This is community events. This is Facebook ads. This is referrals from doctors. This is word of mouth referrals of a neighbor telling your patient to come see you. All of these are part of the marketing world. The thing with phase number 1 is you don't know what's happening. You have control, but it is very external, right? And so the idea here is brand awareness, right? Community outreach, workshops, social media, newsletters. All this stuff is happening out here. And all this stuff is moving around and people are hearing about you and thinking about you. That's phase number 1 now, right? It's owned by your marketing team. It's owned by people who run the workshops. It's owned by your social media people. And by the way, the messaging and all that should be consistent and clear across everybody, right? So the owner is the marketing team. The goal is to increase awareness of your brand. How do you measure that? I would say you can't measure that real simply. So, right, you have to, if you understand your patient journey and who you're serving, go back to video number 1 in our video number 2, and all of that, then you can set up better strategies for marketing to make sure you're getting the word out to the right people, that it's hitting the right people. But brand awareness is just pummeling people with the message, being out in the community again, being everywhere your ideal clients are. The goal is brand awareness, right? Attraction. You want people attracted to, but they got to take that next step, that action, right? They got to choose to want to connect with you. All right. Again, metric of success could be leads, right? We can measure leads because if we go to community of outreach, we could tag those people, how many leads did we get? They don't have to schedule to be a lead. They just have to be a lead. Marketing is not responsible for conversions. Marketing is responsible for leads. Okay. And, right. And again, what's that last one? Oh, systems, right? And it's all these systems we're talking about, right? Social media, right? All of it, all of it, all of it, all of it. So that is that first phase, that attraction phase, right? And the second they raise their hand and say, I want to talk to you, AKA I have low back pain. I want to get scheduled. Any of that, we move into phase number two. And this is really the world that I've been living in, right? That I've been working in and have found that this is the most leverageable phase in this whole journey. This is where you get the biggest ROI. This is where you get the biggest impact to the business. This is where you get the biggest impact to patient success. And by the way, this phase feeds back into the attraction phase. So a great phase two or selling front desk selling phase will take all this gathered information and put it back into your attraction phase so you can get better leads, not just more leads, but better leads, right? So this is really the red is where I've been living. I understand all the rest of it. I work with people, do a lot in the other ones. I understand the connectedness of this all. Yet I spend the bulk of my time here because this is where all the leverage is. And this is the phase that is typically missed by everybody. Let's face it, man, you're looking at marketing and you're looking at training your clinics. And there's this huge phase, right? That's phase one and phase three. And there's this huge step sitting in the middle that you've been forgetting about, all right? This is the one I want you to leverage, right? This is where the true change is made. This is where the money is made, man. The ROI cannot be matched here. There's no equipment, service, treatments, hires you can make that has the ROI of investing your time, money, and energy anywhere into your business than right here. Phase number two, first contact, that golden moment to arrival, right? That is your front desk selling phase. Again, I call it the golden moment. Someone raises their hand, they email you, they text you, they direct message you, they walk into your clinic, they fill out a web form. Any of these things start phase two. It's someone raising their hand and just saying, hey, I'd like to know more. That could be scheduling, that could be questions, any of it. That means marketing has attracted someone who says, I'm interested. Phase two starts, right? And these are all the steps. Now remember, yes, there are smaller steps in this, but this is really where it starts. Now, who owns this, right? Your front desk sales team, not your front desk team, right? We broke down the three roles of your front desk. Remember the the voice, the face, and the back office. Right. So this is owned by the voice of the company. Now, I know you probably have someone playing all three roles, but I want you to be thinking of the three roles. This phase is owned by the salesperson. Right. Their job is to take a new lead and have a conversation and move them through this phase so that they are prepared to do what? Arrive, pay, and then stay. So it's owned by your front desk sales team. The metric of success is lead conversion. Here we go again. Lead conversion is lead to arrived. Scheduled is just a step in a process. Putting people on the schedule is just a step in a process, right? We're not going to celebrate hundreds of people scheduled when only 50% of them show up. Is that your clinic? Yeah, right. So it's lead to arrived. It's an arrival mindset here, right? That's the metric of success. Wait, I'm looking at what those things are, right? Right. And the goal is arrival. And I would say the goal is also, right, to build a relationship. And we can measure this through NPS score, through things like that. So there are different ways to measure it. But really, the goal is arrival. The metric of success is lead conversion, right? And then the systems, man, the systems are the first phone call conversation. We could call it a script, right? But then the process, how do we get the information to move forward to benefit checks? How do we do the cost conversation? Do we do a cost callback, as you see here? How do we get the information, the problem be solved, and the expectations to the provider? These are all the systems and processes that have to be in place to do what? Get someone to arrive, pay, and then stay. Phase two is owned by the salesperson on your front desk team. Now they move into that third phase, which is arrival. And what I love about arrival, right, is that's half front desk, half provider team. It's when the provider or the person who greets the person in the waiting room to bring them to the provider greets them. So the ownership of this phase doesn't change until they meet their provider. So when they arrive, it's still owned by the front desk team, but it shifted to the face of the company, right? So did the salesperson get all the information to the forward facing face of the company, Was paperwork completed? What's their copay? All those things. Was that there? So Jerry just gets greeted with, well, hello, Jerry, right? We've been waiting for you. So sorry to hear about your low back pain, but you made the right choice, right? Here's the three pieces of paperwork you needed, or so glad you completed your three pieces of paperwork. Oh, I know you have a $25 copay. All this stuff, it's a continuation of a conversation. It's not a start over. And the important part of looking at this journey is the connectedness of the phases. Those systems and processes have to be in place to continue their journey and continue a conversation, not restart it every time there's a transfer of ownership. So then Jerry does all his work, have a seat, and then Dr. Jane Doe comes out and greets Jerry. Now Dr. Jane Doe, right, takes ownership of Jerry at this point. That means they have all the accountability. The voice of the company had all the accountability till they arrived for that little bit, right? I would like to say the face of the company is actually facilitating and helping the voice of the company until the provider takes over. So the ownership is voice of the company to provider there with support by the face of the company, right? Provider comes out and greets them. Hello, Jerry. I'm Dr. Jane Doe. I'm here to help you get back to the gym pain free and out of that morning pain. Right now, it turns over to the provider. Right, and basically, this is simple enough. The evaluation is its own step in this. We know how important this is. The evaluation has its own objectives, and then a course of care has its own objectives and systems and processes. The goal of the evaluation is an agreement upon a plan of care, right? And then the goal of the course of care is a completed course of care, right? And so, right, it's all those things that go into getting the agreed upon plan of care and then getting the completed course of care. And that's all owned by the providers. Now, if you have aides, if you have assistants, if you have all that, that's cool. But they're working under the guidance of Dr. Jane Doe for this person. So Dr. Jane Doe has the ownership, and the other team members, we can call them support, we can call them team members, we can call them what we want on the clinical side, are under the guidance of Dr. Jane Doe during these steps. So your practice model doesn't matter for any of this. It still all applies. And then you build out the systems and processes, right? Right. Because Dr. Jane Doe for this, and I've done these, right? I've done this work with one-on-one clinics. I've done this work with PEDS clinics where they're going to see PTOT speech in the same day. I've done this work with clinics that have aides and assistants. That's fine. That's fine. We just build in these small steps to keep the flow going. So Jerry knows that all these promises that were made to him during phase two, sorry, the first step of phase two, the golden moment, are coming to fruition, right? Trust has been built. Trust can be killed in the moment. Oh, I didn't know I was going to see someone different. Man, if I had a buck for every time a clinic came to me with that problem, I'm like, just change the script on a Valde. Right? Change the conversation. By the way, that's where the front desk comes in at checkout. But front desk is running support here. So don't go to your desk team and go, this is on you. No, this is all on the providers, man. They have to facilitate this flow. No one should be walking up to the front desk and hearing something new, right? The provider, goes, right? Maybe they introduced them to the PT assistant, but you guys can hear where the nuance comes in here, but you got to be thinking about every step. And this is why it's nice to break it down into phases, because then it doesn't become so overwhelming. Because if you just step back, I've run into people who are just working on, oh, we got to change how we're, right, introducing the PT assistants at the end of the eval. And I'm like, that starts on the first phone call. And it becomes way easier if you start that on the first phone call and people expect it. Now you just have to deliver on an expectation. So you guys can see where all the nuance comes in here and why it's got to be broken down like this and looked at like this. And then phase 4 here is that post-course of care. This could be discharge. I know most of us don't like the word discharge. Finally, I've been railing against that word for decades. Maybe that post-course of care, I love that I call it post-course of care, you notice. It doesn't say discharge, but it could be discharge. It could be them moving into a wellness program. It could be them moving on to a complete remote program, right? All the remote therapy monitoring tools out there like Everx, right? These are great patient engagement platforms that once people get used to using them during the phase 2 and phase 3, it's easy to keep them on those platforms to keep a post-course of care program, right? And, the ownership, it could go in all different directions, whether you discharge, whether they go into a remote program, right? So I'm not going to get into that. The accountabilities and the metrics of success could be engagement, could be lifetime value of the client, could be all these things. Okay. So this one starts to get a little more complicated, but I think you guys can see where we are with this. So let me click through these real quick. Every phase of that client lifecycle, and I believe I highlighted all of them, have an owner, a goal, a metric of success, and the systems and processes that need to go in there. And you guys really heard that. When you put all these phases together and you put all the systems and processes together to move someone through their journey in your business, all the way from phase one, all the way through phase four, you have then created this, your patient experience, right? And it is the story they take away from them, right? Take away from every visit, from every step that that patient takes away, and they create as they're moving through the life cycle in your practice. It's their emotions. Man, I feel good about this. Man, I trust these people. Man, they're delivering on everything I thought they would, right? These are all the emotional things. It's what they remember and will tell others. So when you pull all these phases together and connect them together with all this work I just described, what sounds insane, but it's not if you break it down, and let the experts of each phase help you build it out. Marketing people, front desk voice people, forward facing front desk people, your billing team, your providers. Let them help you break it all down and put it together. Your job is to go back and connect it all so that your patients have a seamless experience and they feel good about it. Someone does not need to get better for true patient success, for a positive patient experience. Go back and watch the last video. There are 10 points that need to be checked for patient success. All right, everybody. Appreciate you all really starting to get in and do the work here, right? Do the work, right? Where are the scripts? Well, Jerry, they're coming. We got to go a little deeper here into this patient life cycle. Then we could start looking at selling on that first phone call. So thank you for listening to video 3. I hope you went through the intro, video 1, 2, and then 3. And remember, all your questions, all your concerns, all your beliefs, all your objections, anything you want to bring to me and go, but Jerry, what about this? Bring it to the live Q&A. Remember, this whole model doesn't care if you're in network, out of network, cash pay, hybrid. It doesn't care what who you're treating, pediatrics, MSK, pelvic health. All this applies to you. This is the foundation of all that work. Now, when we get to the Q&A, a lot of you are going to want to get in the weeds and go, okay, Jerry, we move from insurance-based in network to this cash program and everything. How should we set that up? I'll help you talk that through. But it'll still all be based on this information. Okay. Cheers all.